Hello and welcome to what is the 183rd episode of the Adoption Fostering Podcast from the ANF Network, with me, Scott Casson-Renee, and himself.
I have no idea. I have no idea.
I was going to say, who are you?
I don't know anymore. I'm not funny.
Okay, so before we start, for those that don't know, Al is holding the fort at home while the good lady C is in Australia for 3 weeks. And what are you on day 159?
3,200. Day 15. Day 15.
Day 50. Oh, so you're halfway there? No, you're more than halfway there.
23 days she's going for.
Oh,
hang on. Yeah, so 10 days to go. No, honestly, I have no idea.
And you laughed. You thought I was being funny when I laughed at you, saying, "How are you going to cope?" And you're like, "Oh, it'll be fine. It'll be fine." Yeah. Has it been fine now? How has it been now? Come on, tell us all your stories.
Right. Well, I've thought about this, and I thought, well, we're going to have this podcast. So I thought, I'll be able to tell you these things that happen. Then I thought, but actually, because she's going away for so long, by the time this comes out, she will still be away.
She'll be back. Oh,
she'll still be away, and she'll listen to it. And so what I'm going to say to you, Scott, is everything is going fine. Absolutely fine. There are things that I have discreetly kept from her to protect the innocent. And what can I say? What can I say is that it's just relentless, isn't it? It's just relentless. The amount of I've lost myself. I've lost a sense of who I am, and it's just so. I have absolute kudos. Absolute kudos must go to the solo parents out there. 100%.
Yeah.
My perspective has been altered in ways that I'll never quite get over. There you go.
No. And she will never be allowed to leave again.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will. I will.
Well, I hope she is listening. I hope she's listening to it on some smart, device, so that everybody that she's visiting can hear it as well and hear the pain and the agony and the angst in your voice, even though you've said everything's going swimmingly well.
What I can tell you is that at one point we had it swept through the house. I mean swept through the house like wildfire across the bush, and that my grandson infected my daughter, who infected me, who infected my son, who infected our Anne, Wheelie Anne, who infected, and so on and so forth, with sickness.
You can't say that.
And dying.
Just call her Wheelie Anne.
Yeah, well, Anne in the wheelchair, just Wheelie Anne.
Yeah, I know, but Anne in the wheelchair would have been better than Wheelie Anne. It makes it sound like she's got 2 wheels for feet. Anyway. Sorry, I'm distracting from your story. I shouldn't butt in.
No, it's absolutely fine. And so, I mean, that's not that unusual, but there's nothing worse than being ill yourself when trying to clean up other people's illness. Oh. And that is a dark place to be in. But it only made slightly worse by the fact that Mrs. Coates, who has yet to grasp the whole time difference concept, so she's getting up and she's going to bed after having spent a day at 38 degrees while it's raining here, and I'm saying, and I'm literally vomiting into the toilet while she's. I might get stop the call so I can vomit. So that was the low.
Oh, joy.
One of the low points, but other than that, can I just
ask you, because you're not very good with stuff like that, are you? So you were cleaning up sick and being sick at the same time. How was was that kind of not helping, or was it just go with the flow?
I'm starting to feel funny now. No. Oh, I can't. It's just everywhere. There was nowhere to go. And do you know when you've been up through the night, like every hour, up through the night, and then you lose track of time, and then Paul is calling me from and it's like, I just thought, I don't know how I'm going to do another 2.5 weeks of this. But we got through that. We survived. I took a day off work, but then it put me behind in work, so I had to work every night. And it was just I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I don't want to turn into a moan cast.
It sounds to me first world problems, Al. I'm not going to lie. I mean, if anything, yeah, well, I've had to do it. You know yourself, like Tris goes off to Thailand for a couple of weeks, and I have to crack on, and I have to work, and I have to do this and that, the next thing, and feed them and water them, and make sure that plants don't die, and that cats and dogs are fed. Has any animals died or not been fed?
No,
because I know that was quite a concern of hers before.
I'll be honest. I've not paid any. I don't know about the horse, but I have no idea what's happening to the horse.
I'm assuming the horse has been looked after by somebody at the stable.
You know, I'm assuming too. I'll be honest with you. I'm not particularly. I'm not. I mean, it could be dead in a field.
Oh my God!
And I wouldn't know.
I can just imagine now SPCA will be out.
I was going to say that there must be a list where she left the list somewhere. I should check the list.
Yeah, maybe you should check and just mention, just turn it over as well. There might be horse race on the back.
Oh my goodness, yes, it's a terribly 3D world, isn't it? Yeah, so it's been amazing, really, and work has been busy as well. So yeah, it's just, I mean, I do have to get empathy when you go away, but you do know that if you've got 2 children to look after, I've got there are people who will die if I don't feed them.
Whoa! Rewind.
Yeah.
So you've got a number of adult people in the house who actually are partially independent, if not fully independent, as well. So is this not?
Yeah.
I'm just playing devil's advocate with this because you're making out like you're a saint. No, but you're making out like you're a saint, and you're not a saint. Let's be honest. You might have an MBE, but you're not a saint.
No.
I'm just, you're making out that everybody is dependent on Mr. Coates, so I'm quite sure.
Well, no, it's absolutely true. I guess it's been a bit tricky in that I've been also working. I've worked 50 hours plus a week on my day job as well. It's been a particularly bit of a bottleneck. So, but other than that, it's been fine, to be honest. And it is just a bit unrelenting, and it's nice when everything stops at the end of the day. But I'll be really pleased to see her when she gets back. Bless her.
I'm sure you will. And
then I can tell the stories. I can tell about the things that have happened that are less than ideal, shall we say? That's a nice one. Anyway, so we didn't come on here.
You're not going to put it publicly, in other words.
Well, maybe I will when she gets back.
Yeah, maybe.
The
trolling. Just imagine the trolling, because fabulous.
I've not been trolled in ages. I have no idea. I've not. No one's.
Wow. Now I've mentioned it, that'll probably be next week's job.
Well, wake them up from their slumber. But how are you, Scott? Because you're in Blighty, aren't you, at the moment?
I am, yes. I'm doing my my delayed February visit because obviously son's partner and baby came over to us in February. So
yeah,
I didn't come over in February, so I've come over now. I also needed a haircut, and I know that sounds right strange. That does sound right strange.
It's an expensive haircut.
Yeah, well, it's kind of, kill 12 birds, one stone kind of thing. So I went back to my favorite hairdressers to have my hair and beard done. Hence, I don't look like a caveman anymore, so it's quite good.
I didn't even notice when you came on. I thought
you did.
You're looking quite dapper. Is that a good?
Well, I'll take that if that's what you're offering.
Yeah, I'm not coming on to you. Don't build your hopes up, mate. Not that good looking.
No, I'm just younger. Anyway, I'm only over till Thursday. Then I go back, and then Tris is over in Blighty next week for the NIDEX thing in Birmingham. That's a big conference-y thing at the NEC or whatever it's called. So it's a busy few weeks, but we're cracking on. We're cracking on.
So we were chatting about what we would do tonight, and I thought that you've got some news. You've had some really positive news in terms of supporting children with FASD. So do you want to share that? I think that'd be really good, because I think that I know you're kind of grinding away a lot at that stuff, and there's some, like all part, there's the rock and roll bits of our lives, but there's a lot of grinding away as well. So tell us what's happened.
Well, I mean, essentially, and do you know what? I'm not stupid enough to think that actually this is something that happens every day, because it isn't something that happens every day. But as you know, we set up FASD Ireland 2.5 years ago, and we've worked quite hard within that time. Now, there's been other organisations in Ireland that have kind of set up and not been able to achieve what they've wanted to achieve, and stuff's gone stale, and parenting takes over and blah blah, and we've really stuck with it. And I think part of that is because the work that we do with Hidden Disability Sunflower as the Irish distributors kind of helped us financially to keep the organisation going. Everybody thinks that the money we get from Hidden Disabilities to come straight to me and Tris, and it doesn't. It goes into FASD Ireland, because obviously we've got offices, we've got phones to pay for, and internet, and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, long story short, we've been lobbying for the last 2.5 years. And if anybody knows Tris, they'll know that he's like a doggy with a bone, and he just won't let stuff go. And I guess what happened last June, and we did post about this actually, last June we had the Minister for Disabilities, Anne Rabbitte, who you've met because she came to open our offices in whenever that was. Yeah,
down with the Minister.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we had a meeting with her last June, and she told us, she said, look, you guys, you're not being paid. You need to be paid. So I suggest you do this. So we did as she suggested, and basically it was writing up almost like a business plan and business case of why we should be provided government funding. So we hoped to hear in October, didn't hear. Then we hoped to hear in beginning of February, we didn't hear. But we had a meeting with her last week, and she has confirmed that the Department for Disabilities in Ireland is going to fund FASD Ireland to develop the FASD hub for the state of Ireland. And they're also going to fund some research as well into the prevalence of FASD in Ireland.
Wow.
So we're not talking €100 here. We're talking a lot of money. And it's going to be partially funded by the HSE, which is a health service executive, which is like the NHS over in Ireland.
Yep.
And essentially, she announced it in the chamber. So she was over there. They do like these things called topical issues. And they topical issues, PQs. It's not Prime Minister's questions, it's parliamentary questions. And they also do motions and things like that. And there was a motion brought up about disabilities last week, and she made a statement and she confirmed that she was going to be funding FASD Ireland to provide these things as well. So
that is
it's
amazing.
been made public. It's going to really help us out. We've started recruiting already for staff.
Excellently taken on.
Because we have to. There's just no way we can do all this on our own now. And yeah, so it's amazing. It's an amazing opportunity for FASD Ireland. It's really good for us, and it's essentially really good for those living with FASD. And it'll mean that we can reach more people with FASD because we'll be able to, I guess, market ourselves better in terms of being able to provide services. So it's amazing, absolutely ginormous news for more than one reason, and we are obviously clearly delighted by it. So yeah, so that was last week.
Well, this is really interesting because it sort of coincides with a conversation I've had with a few people over the last recent weeks, but also over the last few months as well. And I was thinking, especially in our community, especially parents, I think, of children with vulnerabilities and specific issues, like FASD, but also adoption, fostering, and any sort of special educational needs, challenging behaviours, that so often the roots of so many of the organisations are people like yourself, parents who've kind of gone, something needs to change. And we're going to do that. And I just find it fascinating that you've translating that desire to change something into actual concrete stuff is really hard.
Well, it is, and you have to remember, I think so there's a couple of things within that. Number one, I wasn't interested in doing FASD Ireland to begin with, and I hold my hands up to that because actually I couldn't see how it was going to work out. Now, as you know, I worked for Adoption UK for 5 years, worked with a charity, was really aware of funding models and applying for funding, not getting it, all that sort of stuff, and I just couldn't see how this was going to work. So I thought it was probably better not to put myself in that position in terms of risk for our family, because somebody still had to earn money and pay the bills, kind of thing, and there's no income from FASD Ireland for us at the minute. But then, of course, 2 years ago yesterday, my brain decided to pop. 2 years ago tomorrow, my brain decided to pop. So that changed everything in terms of how I could work and where I could work. But I think had it not been for those 5 years at Adoption UK, working in the sector, understanding it, and really getting to grips with funding models and policies and procedures, all those kinds of things that actually you have to know. And you'll know this from, being the registered manager of the fostering agency and a director as well. And, you need to be aware of all these things. So in terms of being self-taught, yes, probably self-taught, but actually the ultimate goal was what we did last year, to open up the hub so that people could call us and get advice, and it's peer support. So there's more development of that to do in terms of what we offer. But the peer support is our model, and we can now develop that into providing more. But I think that, and I think we both stick to this, even though I wasn't involved from the start, we just didn't want any other families coming through any system and not being supported for a child with FASD, and that there wasn't support available. And I think that's ultimately what we wanted to do, and that's what we have achieved. And with this funding, it means we can continue to achieve it, because actually it's not just a one-off funding, it's every year funding. Ultimately, we still have to fill in forms and stuff, and make sure that we're all kind of all our,
you kind of have to
I mean,
evidence that you've used the money on.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. You've not look at our new house. Look at my new car. Look at my,
exactly. Although there will be that, because we're now going to be paid, so therefore we can afford. Because we desperately need a new car, because literally, I'm sure the garage is going, oh, here they come again, at the moment, because and the credit card company, I mean, they're at their wits' end with us. They're right.
I can imagine having met you.
But that's the point. We haven't taken a salary because we've wanted to put that money back into FASD Ireland to make sure that we were there to go. And only 4 weeks ago, we were considering whether we were going to be able to keep on doing it because of the funding. So ultimately, it's family helping out family. It's a not-for-profit social enterprise, so we're not making any profit. It's not like it's a business or a company.
Yeah.
It's literally what we earn goes back into it, and that's it. And yes, we take a pay. So
I don't think you need to justify that. I think no. It's all above board. But I just find it really fascinating because having had these conversations recently, and I think that adopters, I mean, that's our tribes. When we go back to it, that's our tribe. I just think that it's fascinating that I see so many people with a passion, and that's what Adoption UK is. That's their roots, isn't it? 3 people, or half a dozen people on a kitchen table going, something's got to give.
Yeah,
and then. They have to then upskill themselves, because I was really conscious of this yesterday. I was at the CoramBAAF thing, and I just felt like a fish out of water, really, because I thought all these people are heads of service, and it feels like that they've been on these pathways to get there that are just really, well, I don't know, maybe that's my sort of working class chip on my shoulder. I don't know, but it feels like that they have I don't think I have one, but what I mean is that it feels like that there's a really clear pathway to get into that world that is really not as close to a lot of people. And how, if you see an injustice, what can you do? And I see so many people burnt out, and I have a personal gripe, and that's online petitions, and the people frustrated. I want to see. I saw one recently. I think it was, I want every social worker to be trauma informed. Absolutely. But it's like a petition is the only tool people have got. So they use it, and you kind of go, I know where that petition will end up. I know, because of the stuff we've done, I know where it will get to. And I know that it will be battered away like a ping pong ball.
Yeah.
It's not going to pull the right levers. It hasn't got the thing. But I'm really fascinated by the fact that you're going to be able to commission some research, which I think is wow. The minute you've got numbers,
Who would have thought?
Well, yeah, but that's the point, is that you don't. What you've learned through Adoption UK, what are the skills that you need? You don't need to be able to do research. You need to be able to fill in a form. Yeah. That gets money. To access the funding to get the research. And know the people who can do the research for us as well. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that is, when I think about it, and there's been milestones along the way, of course there has, and there's been reasons for celebration along the way, of course there is. But there's always that thing in the back of your head, we don't have any money, where are we going to afford to do this, that, and the next thing with? So when some funding finished in July last year, we really had to kind of bring ourselves back in, and we had to, reduce our size and all that sort of stuff, and almost reduce what we were doing to a point, but not to the point where we were missing. Well, I hope we weren't missing phone calls of people who were looking for support, because that's essentially why we were there. But I think for me, in terms of celebrations, I don't think we're looking at it like that, because I think we both know that we've got a long road ahead yet. It's not going to be easy to get people to take part in the research ultimately, unless they feel supported in it, and secure that
you know, the information they're going to be given is confidential and all that sort of stuff, because it's still there's still a lot of stigma attached to it.
Yeah.
And not just in Ireland, you know, everywhere really. But I think that we're just very aware of that in Ireland, and you know, it's not going to be an easy road. So we've still got a lot to do. But in terms of, you know, the stability and the longevity of FASD Ireland, that's now there. You know, I've heard this said so many times about charities, not for profits. We may have set up, but we are the caretakers for it at the minute, because eventually we're going to retire and pass it on to somebody else. So, you know, just as it is now, it's now worth something to the community. So, you know, in terms of that in itself, I think is very, you know, 2.5 years. That, you know, we know charities and we know organisations that never get funding like that. So
but there's an element of risk and cost, isn't it? Like you said, there's not, you can't necessarily put a financial figure on that, because you've the energy. But I do find it fascinating how people like yourself and me and, you know, other people, how do we affect change? And I think that, like you say, you've not even got, it's as though you've actually just got on your legs. That's the achievement here, is you've got on your legs, you've been legitimized. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
But you've yet to actually do anything, you know, in terms of, you know, you haven't got any research. I know you have been doing stuff, but it's only now that you can really start to do stuff. And I think, just these conversations I've had recently, just really fascinating to see. There's a passion and there's these skill sets, but again, it's almost like closed. There's a, you know, if you saw something in adoption or fostering, you want to change, what levers do you even have to pull? And and even getting a group of people, like I know you've got a board of reference or advisors. Am I on that?
Yeah, sure. Board of advisory board, yeah.
Right. But even that, it's like you have to be able to draw in the knowledge of specific individuals. You have to. It's the work before you even get to the start line is just insurmountable to affect any sort of change. And then, and occasionally, I think people are sort of slightly enamored or sort of slightly tricked by, you see individuals have a catastrophic event in their lives. They go on, you know, breakfast TV. They say, we want to do this. And that momentum is just not available to the rest of us, you know, that kind of that publicity.
Absolutely. And also I think that you know, and again, having been involved in that over, you know, the time I was at UK,
breakfast telly
before and after. Yeah, absolutely. But you also see how people can run out of steam as well. And also what comes up for them. You know, I'm thinking Ben Ashcroft as an example. Now, I think we've had Ben on, actually. I think we talked to him when he was doing something. This is many moons ago.
You shadowed him on his walk, didn't you?
Yes, I did, yeah. And a brilliant guy. Love him to bits. I haven't spoken to him for a long time, though, because like everybody else, he needed space. He needed to sort out his mental health. So therefore, the momentum that he'd picked up and ran with to do all that, he made a massive impact at the time. Don't get me wrong, but you know, because of that, who picked it up for him? You know, who kept it going for him? I know that Every Child Leaving Care Matters organisation, stroke.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure legally what they are, but you know, I don't know, they try to keep it going, but actually when somebody has a face and a voice and they're talking from personal experience and people listen, you know, that BBC presenter, Jane McCubbin, she picked up, she went with it. She was on Twitter as it was at the time, and she was sharing stuff and, you know, telling the story and what have you. But actually that did run out of steam, and that's not Ben's fault. That's just his circumstances that, you know, resulted in that. But nobody was there to pick up. And I think that you have to have that kind of determination and grit, no matter how hard it gets. And believe me, oh my days, has it been hard. But you know,
I would say as well, I mean, I totally agree that there's got to be a level of resilience and endurance and kind of long-sightedness. But I think what I kind of, it's slightly heartbreaking when you see people with real passion, but they're plowing the wrong furrow. You know, so an example it would be, and this is maybe a personal gripe about the Facebook, but the online petitions, is to see that people get a real momentum and they put endless hours thinking they're going to, when they get to the 10,000, you know, or more,
something's going to change. Yeah,
something's going to change, and you think, kind of go, it's part of a bigger picture that you need a social momentum, but you also need like a system momentum.
Exactly.
But I mean, a really good example would be the movement to get self-employed adopters maternity or paternity pay, which reached the threshold, got a parliamentary debate. Where is it? It kind of got stuck into policy or different departments arguing. It's withered on the vine, even though there was an enormous amount. I think I saw celebrities, there was meetings, and that's heartbreaking because all that passion has been sort of washed against the shore. Were the right levers pulled? Maybe they were. I don't know. Maybe it's an issue that hasn't gotten. You could argue over the issue. And even the issue that you choose, how you word it, all of those things really matter. So that's very fascinating. Very fascinating.
I think it's something that we'll probably come back to in terms of because we both know loads of people who've set up things and they've really got I'm thinking about kinship care as an example. That started off as something completely different, very small, and then all of a sudden it's just gone boom. Now, I know Lucy. We've had Lucy on, and we've also had somebody else on. But I'm just thinking that in terms of an organisation that would be similar, and how that's kind of taken off due to the kind of tenacity, the grit, all that kind of stuff that's gone on behind the scenes from the people who originally founded it. That's the only reason it's still here. And that's kind of, if you're passionate enough about something, that's fine, but you need the numbers, and like you say, you need the process to be able to affect change as well. It's all very well signing a petition. I get that, I do, because I'm conscious that I do it as well. If something comes up that I believe in, I'm there signing the online petition. But actually, where it goes after that, I don't know.
I mean, that's a great point about kinship. I think that's a really good comparison, because I think that I was just the other person we've had on is Sam Turner, and he's the policy wonk. They literally they employ people to, that is their sole job, and you kind of go, shouldn't it be about supporting families? You go, but if you want to affect change,
well, no, and this is the thing, and the first thing we did, and I know you've met him, but Rob, who was a placement student last year, he was so passionate about policy and research. The first thing we did was brought him back to fit in around his university studies he started back yesterday as policy and research coordinator, because it's so important, because he will be the person that's looking to find and see and what can we do, and we need to have a position on this, and we need to make a statement about that.
Networking, media.
It's hugely important to have people like that. It's not a full-time role, because we're not like that yet. And in actual fact, a lot of the lobbying that we've done has been hugely successful, and we've now got the contacts to be able to do it. But yeah, you're right. People think, well, why would you need that role? You desperately need roles like that, because if you don't have them, you can't carry on affecting the change and picking up what's important, not just to families, but also to, the people who are supporting families, so professionals like social workers and psychologists and, the CAMS staff and all that sort of stuff. And that's really, really an important thing to be able to develop and grow. So,
which is really fascinating, because I think I remember maybe the halcyon days of adoption when you and I first met, when you were in AUK, and there was a real buzz around all of that. And thinking about AOUK staff that was their sole purpose. You were entwined with that. We would often be in meetings, and they'd be there, and they'd be pulling levers. They'd be affecting change. They'd be lobbying the DFE. They'd be lobbying the CVA. They'd be lobbying the minister. They'd be creating campaigns. They would be. And meant that there was always, then it would be that they'd be able to bring in, Adoption UK has got a new policy, and then you'd be on the telly, and because you're on the telly. But that's how it works. It's this whole machine that creates news and policy, and like a piece of research that you can then, you get research as even if it's a small study, you get the numbers. Your policy person has primed the TV stations. You have a big push, and it keeps you going. It keeps your momentum going. And I think that all that stuff is, you have to build up a real head of steam to get that. And I think on a really low level, affecting change, again, these conversations I've had with adoptive parents recently, and it's about having that real focus, but system literacy and understanding. That's just fascinating. really good. We weren't meant to talk about that, but I found that
No, I know.
really
Sorry,
interesting.
we've gone into a lot of depth there, but I'm sure it's something we'll come back to. And also when we do, so because Rob went off to do his studies abroad for 6 months, and the FASD What's the Crack podcast, we kind of did one series, but I think that will help to kind of develop the podcast for FASD Ireland as well, because we'll be talking about stuff like that, but we'll be talking about it with legitimacy and real insight into what is really going on in the country in terms of FASD. So it's I guess you've reminded me that I should really be excited about it. And actually, I'm not. Neither of us are patting ourselves on the back, because we're just going, oh my God, we got some funding, and that's what we needed, what we wanted. But actually, we do need to kind of look over our shoulders and see just how far we've come in 2.5 years to be in this position now. It's been no mean feat, and it is absolutely amazing. So yeah,
no, it's really
thank you
good
for
news.
asking me. Thank you for asking.
No, well, I am interested, and I think it's people should Google it, and there's some great YouTube resources about the theory of change. How do we affect change? And I think that sometimes we can be the challenge. I think the challenge is that you then get you do get then organizations that become very mindful of their policy position and the access that you've got. So, and I think we suffer from that a little bit. I do, is that sometimes I think things, and I think, well, I don't feel that's appropriate to say, because I don't want to shut the doors.
Yeah.
And so then you get Adoption UK, who I think everyone at Adoption UK is great. I've got no axe to grind there. But I do sometimes think I understand that they have to do this dance, that if they just go and speak in terms of the challenges that adoption faced, if they kind of just have at it, with a flamethrower, people will go, oh, these people are so against adoption. But, I can't believe they've published that. They've got to delicately balance and word things in a way that is palatable, stretches the narrative, but doesn't burn down the bridges. It's just
absolutely,
fascinating. And you'll be the same. But you politicking.
Exactly. And again, politicking. And again, it's a very similar situation, because when Tris first came into that, he was almost like a parent who just wanted to help. So his terminology, his language was all wrong. He was quite a bit keyboard warrior-ish, shall we say. And he's had to really change how he does that. And bear in mind, he's like a career railwayman, unions, the whole jing bang, we will not stand for this, so therefore we're all going out on strike. And he's really had to change his approach in terms of how he thinks. And I think that actually, the relationships that he's built up with ministers and the equivalent of MPs over there, TDs, he has some amazing relationships with them, because he's actually just taken a step back and gone, actually, do you know what? I can't be like that, because I'm not just a parent. I'm actually, a parent who runs an organization for other families with, FASD. And there's elements of professionalism that have to come with that as well. However, you also have to be able to challenge at the same time. There's no way in this world that you can't not. And especially, the position he holds is, whether you want to call him the leader or the boss or the CEO or, whatever, he is that person. He is that person who has to maintain those relationships, but also get his point across.
Yeah. But families. Then the people on the ground, people on grassroots look at him and go, oh, Tris used to say it how it was. Tris used to be this outspoken guy. He would call people out. Tris would, if he thought it was wrong, he would, he'd post an angry tweet and stuff, and then you get accused of
just not about FASD now.
It's about about the railway timings, at the Watford Gap or something. And I just, because I got really out of sorts. I shouldn't maybe say, but I got really out of sorts when someone said it was a bit snarky. I had a conversation with a group of people, and someone got a bit snarky, as if, as I say, I was a bit wishy-washy, and I got really snarky with them, because I thought, it's that notion of you want to be, do you want to be inside the tent pissing out, or outside the tent pissing in? To use an absolute,
Yeah, no, that's true. But that's the thing. We've both been around long enough, and whether we've maybe affected one or two things or changed people's opinions at high levels, at the end of the day, we've said this all along, and I'm sure we've said it on here as well. It doesn't matter what minister's in. It's not the minister that's going to make a decision. It's the people who are working behind the scenes. But it is. So it doesn't really matter what the minister's saying in public. If it doesn't go down too well, there's people, there's. I'm not going to mention names. I was then going to mention some names, but there's people behind the scenes who, we know they are the people who have such a deep understanding of, let's say, adoption or fostering or kinship care. They've gone all out. Their career has been focusing in on that. Yes, they work for the government, but it's the government of the day, not just one specific government. Those people will still be there if there's a new government, and they'll still be banging the same old drum. Because they listen, and they do listen, but they're limited in what they can do because of the way things work. And, you and I have, I've been doing it 10 years, just over 10 years. You've been doing it probably 13, 14 years, maybe?
Well, no, I mean, I've been blogging since 2013.
Yeah.
And that's the engine of all of it, really.
Absolutely.
But then got into DFE of 2015. Well, I do find it
about
fascinating.
The same time then, but yeah, so it's about knowing how and who, because who is very important. I sat at a round table with Michael Gove when he was children's minister.
You and Govey,
and I tell you, and he was a minister, but actually had personal experience of it. But that didn't make quite a bit of difference. It was people behind the scenes that were doing it. Not him.
Well, yeah, and I can think of a few people who've been who've been. Well, Mark Owens is a really good example. I think I've said, I looked at the letter that I sent back to Tony Blair in 2000 something, and I got a response from like a government response, which at the time I was quite pleased with. I looked at the name; it was Mark Owens, and I thought, blimey, 10 years later, and he's kind of
best mate,
me and Mark besties. I want to move us on a little.
Yeah, because I feel like we could. It's an amazing discussion because I think that actually, yes, there's great news about FASD Ireland, but I think that you're right. If people are getting snarked about the fact that they think or that you're not doing anything, or that you've not got an opinion on something or something like that, actually, it's quite the opposite. It's just about knowing. It's about keeping it in that part of your brain where it's ready for that one person, because you will meet them, that one person who says, well, I've got a specific interest in this, and you just grab them and you go with it. Because actually, we can evidence from 20 emails or 20 Facebook messages, actually, that 20 families are dealing with this. How can, and things like kinship, that's how that developed, because somebody took an interest in it.
Yeah.
It took a long time to get there, and it's still not perfect, but they
understand the system. They understand the game they need to play. There's a couple of things, news items. Did you see that it was LGBTQ plus I? Oh, forgive me.
LGBTQ.
LGBTQ. It is
Adoption and Fostering Week.
The month and a week, yeah. And I saw a news item, and I saw that the statistics that were being quoted by some of the RAs was that 25% of families and individuals who adopt are in same-sex couples or part of that community. So we've gone from
a lot to from
zero
to a lot, and over the lifetime of this podcast, I think we've each year we quote the figures and stuff, and that is obviously the highest, and I think it's higher in Scotland as well than it is in terms of the UK. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Maybe it's the weather.
Maybe
I don't know.
the telly signal to decide to adopt. I mean, it's no laughing matter, is it, when you think about it? And I'm actually going to be taking part in a mini documentary thing online. I know. Sorry.
Say what?
So
they didn't ask me.
No, well, funny enough, you don't have much experience of that, do you?
No.
I've been approached to take part in, like a mini documentary thing by a journalist, looking at kind of the changes in adoption, and also not being the first, but being one of the first families to be kind of formed.
Part of that cohort.
And it was really interesting because the journalist is adopted herself, and she's very positive about adoption. And I was like, oh, okay. When we were doing a pre thing, I said, my views on adoption have changed quite dramatically. I'm still, I love my children, all that sort of stuff, but they have changed dramatically. So you just need to bear that in mind if we go ahead. So anyway, she was fine. So I don't know when it's coming out. I'm having that kind of chat next week and stuff. No, not yet. It's next week. So. And
can I ask, is this the BBC, or does it not count?
Does it not count? You cheeky bugger.
But
it might be on BBC Sound. I don't know. You know, just.
Well, who's it
for? I'm not telling you.
Why not?
Blimey, governor. Because, God, you're so nosy. Do you? I don't ask you what you got up to. There's loads of stuff in our podcast calendar. And I'm like, oh, he's at it again, like selling his wares. You know, not invited anymore because I live in Ireland. You know, yeah.
That's not true. I've invited you to our next meeting with the sexologist.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, the stuff that you can't deal with, I get invited to. Yes, thank you very much.
I'll be sat with a colander on my head. God,
yeah,
can't cope. No, I thought you'd enjoy that because I thought you'd enjoy me being all squirmy. So we've got an adopted
squeamish.
Squeamy.
Yeah,
we've got an adopted adult.
Yeah, that's right.
Adult adoptee. Sorry, who's come on and I got in touch with us, and she's international and she's doing a PhD in sexology. So that'd be fascinating. But anyway, you sidetracked me. One of the things I was thinking of in terms of the kind of the increase in same sex and LGBTQI is I did wonder, right, and this is what a little thought that came into my head, and I haven't had a chance to do the research, but it is a thought. Is the number of LGBTQI adoptions are reducing, or is it the number of straight same-sex couples?
Well, I wondered this as well. I did wonder this because, and also the number of children available, people going into it, and it's a lot. You know, they can find out a lot more now. They only have to look on socials to see some of the kind of things that are happening. So I guess it will come down to the numbers, won't it? Numbers of adoptions every year. So I think we have to wait until we see how many adoptions have happened to be able to understand.
I think I said that wrong. I think in terms of is the number going up or is the same-sex couples, the heterosexual couples going down and increasing? Exactly. That's what I said. Sorry, I got my.
You did say that. I understood it.
All right. Okay, you understood. Yeah, you read my mind.
Everybody will understand. Yeah.
Because I speak in simple, plain language.
Yeah.
We have tapped into rich veins I was not expecting. So really quickly, I went to the CoramBAAF post-adoption support conference yesterday.
I know. I saw. You put it on Facebook and I went, yawn.
I know.
Because you were a keynote speaker.
Oh, no.
Whatever.
Whatever. I have to say, I had a wonderful day.
Did it go down like a shit sandwich? Like not an NPR shit sandwich, just generally a shit sandwich.
A conventional shit sandwich. Classic. Do you know what? I don't know. I really enjoyed the day, and it seemed to be well received what I had to say. But then I listened back up, and I think this is where I went wrong. I'd recorded it thinking, oh, well, maybe it'll be quite interesting. Maybe instead, then I sort of got into this kind of hubris, kind of self-aggrandizing death spiral on the train on the way home, listening to myself going, you can't even string a sentence together. You're a blithering idiot. And so I didn't like it. But it seemed to be well received. But I kind of felt like I was, on reflection, I wondered whether I was wheeled out as a bit of a trick pony to kind of just stir the waters a little bit. I did stir them. Though, I've got a few highlights. One is that afterwards, Julie Selwyn, who is like a mighty atom, went into the show. She got me an intellectual headlock and disagreed with something I'd said, and I felt suitably chastised. Though she, well, I drew out. So one of the things I drew out was that,
she got my email then.
Excellent. Here are his vulnerabilities.
Oh dear. Yeah.
He's insecure about the size of his nose. If you mention that, he will. Just if you could mention that
on the end,
I'd said that I'd looked at the Beyond the Adoption Order, which sort of said a third of families are in crisis. Then I looked at the last adoption barometer, and it said a third of children are in crisis, families are in crisis. And I said, we spent £200 million.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've got a point. To be fair,
well, she didn't think so.
No, but then
she's cleverer than us.
Well, I'm sure she is, but we live in it. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
When I say we, I mean, like, people are still living it, and I'm thankfully, gratefully not in that position now, but we have been.
And she's doing some new research about children 16 to 25, adopted children.
Wow.
And she's asked if she's going to send us a link she's looking for people who want to share their experience of what happens, post 18. And I thought that's really seminal. So that was really good.
Wow.
Joanne Alper was there. She was really good. Lots of stats about the relationships with children. That was really good. What are you looking at? You're looking shocked.
Well, she never messages me anymore. Out of sight, out of mind, all that jazz.
Well,
she used to be my boss at Adoption Plus.
She did. And speaking of you, it's a long list of former bosses. Emily Frith was there as well, and I accidentally shared all of her stats beforehand.
Was never my boss.
That's true.
Would be if I was still there, but I'm not there.
She's like a phantom boss, isn't she? She's like when you get a limb removed and you still can feel the limb. I think she's like a phantom boss, and that she's not your boss anymore, but she feels like your boss.
Yeah. She's the current caretaker of the mothership.
You said, that sounds like there's a suspicious notion of a return there. Are you not going to go back?
No, absolutely not. Oh God, no. Never go back. You should never go back. Never go back.
That's good. And what a High Court judge, who's the deputy of the Public Law Working Group subgroup on adoption, spoke, and I have to say he was fantastic, and his name escapes me. That's so embarrassing. I should be able to tell you what that is. I'm going to Google that while I talk. And he, I have to say, do you know when you meet people who are just kind of cut from a different cloth altogether? And he got up and he had no notes. He didn't. It was just his scheme, and he had no notes. He just spoke, and he spoke so eloquently with real precision. But what he did say out of the Public Law Working Group, they'd taken on board an awful lot of stuff. But what was really interesting, and I thought this was because I'm under the assumption that there's no appetite for legislative change. But he said this one issue there is, and this is part of the 2002 Adoption Act, Section 67. I know you're not very interested, says that adopted children, once the order is in place, that they become as born to the adopters.
Right. So
it goes. If they're adopted at 5, then it goes back 5 years and says all of that counts for the adopters.
For nothing.
And he says that is the one place where there's appetite, because actually, why are we pretending?
Yes,
absolutely. It's an absolute nonsense, and that we should that there's a huge appetite to just go, actually, let's just call it for what it is, because the world has moved on. It's not 1950 anymore.
No, exactly. And also, there's then some kind of there's quality in what adults who have been adopted adults. Adoptees. Sorry if I've missed one out. There's appetite within them for that to be recognised as well. So, that could be the catalyst for all of that being taken into account in terms of affecting change for adoption, with contact, with,
access to records,
medical records, the whole thing could
birth certificates
be changed on something as very small as that, but,
Yeah. And I think I can't see anyone objecting to that. I can't. But then there's lots of really interesting conversations afterwards. Lots of people, and hopefully people will maybe get onto the podcast, maybe get some guests on. But one person I spoke to was just fascinating, because she was an adoptive parent. She was also the head of a service. I'm not saying who, but she said you would be amazed at how many people are still not telling. And I don't think you do know.
I do.
No, you don't.
I'll ask you afterwards.
I might have forgotten her name, actually. It's embarrassing. No, but saying that she was saying you'd be amazed at how many people coming to them with their 7-year-old and 11-year-old saying, we haven't told them that they're adopted.
See, I struggle with that. Very much.
Oh,
it's not like people aren't given the tools to be able to do it. I'm not being funny, but, that's not how adoption works now. Why are people not using the tools that they're being provided with by their social workers on placement, the child social workers? I'd love to say life story books, but let's be honest, some people still don't have them even 10 years on after
they're not worth the paper they're written on, some of them, if we're being absolutely honest.
Yes, but wow, that's ridiculous.
Which is interesting. That sort of dovetailed with what Justin Keane was saying in terms of one aspect, because he talked a bit about maintaining family links, and he said that there is provision within the Act, the current legislation, to instigate instigate contact against regardless of what the adopters want. And he said, and it was really good. He made this, because I was actually sat next to him. It was fantastic to just kind of pick his brains. And he said, it's really interesting. He said, if in the family courts, if you had two families who were coming and they were contesting over children and they couldn't come to an agreement that was reasonable, the courts would quite happily step in and instigate law to say, you must have contact with your dad on every other weekend, or or this person. Yeah. And he said, and no one would even bat an eye. No. He said, but in this case, we just say to the adopters, oh, it's up to you. Yeah. And he said, that is a real disparity. And I thought, oh, that's a really compelling argument, isn't it?
It is massively. Wow.
So it was an absolutely fantastic day. I really enjoyed myself, even though I was probably an average. I feel like we've got lots coming up. I feel like I'm really excited for April because we're seeing SAT and we're seeing each other, which we haven't seen each other in years.
We are, yes. We haven't seen each other in ages. And I'm going, I wheedled my way in to...
into an emailed stream.
Well, come on, guys. If you're listening, stop just thinking because I live in Ireland. I'm here every month as a matter of course. And secondly, it's actually cheaper for me to get to the UK than it is for Al to get to London.
So quicker and cheaper.
Yeah.
Well, literally.
Oh, she's cheap. But yeah, literally. So stop thinking that there's Anyway, I'm not going to keep bleating on about that because I understand that because I don't live in it anymore. However, this podcast is proof in itself that we still doing things.
Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Scott, anyway, what does the future hold for you? What are you doing over the next few days? When are you back in that island?
Ireland. I'm back there on the Thursday. Bit of a hoo-ha with the car hire on the Saturday night when I arrived. The husband had booked it for the next day. The husband had booked it for the next day. Yeah. Oh. So got a nice little stay in a hotel tomorrow night instead of leaving at 4 a.m. on Thursday morning. So that actually worked out quite well. But get back to Ireland. Lots to do. Just really plowing on. We're recruiting at the minute. Got 2 roles. If anybody's interested in living in Ireland, I mean,
absolutely,
you never know. We've got a business manager role. The business manager is going to be responsible for applying for funding and grants and all that sort of stuff. And then we've also got an FASD hub coordinator role, which is going to be responsible for taking calls and support families and things like that. We actually had somebody, and I won't mention the name because that would be unfair, but we actually had somebody from America asking if we would accept an application from somebody who was willing to relocate to Ireland for the role. And I was like, wow, I know. Yeah. So I gave her the kind of insight into, because there was lots of questions asked and, so I gave her an insight. However, I was very flattered that somebody from America who, was interested in her. So, yeah.
I mean, it's, on this side of the pond, it's a big deal, isn't it? I mean, I know they've got stuff in Canada, haven't they? I don't know. What about the US? I don't know.
Well, I think the US is quite sketchy, to be honest. I think it's a bit of a postcode lottery, shall we say.
Yeah.
Canada's Canada's not perfect. And, I know that because, I speak to a lot of people and we've had Jeff Noble on, he's from Canada. I do speak to a lot of people that but things like public health messaging in Canada, a lot of the provinces, because they're called provinces in Canada. So like Ontario as an example, where they sell alcohol, they must have something up to say, during pregnancy, you shouldn't drink alcohol, blah, blah, blah. And that goes with a lot of the provinces over there. But again, support is very kind of postcode lottery, but there is quite a bit in Canada, which is great. In America, very postcode lottery-ish.
Yeah. Well, I've got a few American guests coming on soon, so that's interesting, I think. Yeah. Well, I'm just basically working on surviving. That's my primary aim.
Have you had any steak yet? Because you were. It was all going to be steak dinners and stuff.
I haven't. I just haven't had time.
You know what? You should go to stables and check, and you might get horse meat.
It's a bit gamey.
Or just go to Iceland. They sell it apparently. So
Italians eat it as well. Yeah. Cool.
Well, I'm sure you'll survive. You've done well, my friend. You have done well. I love every so often I log into Twitter and there's a message like you've mentioned me in a tweet, and you're like at death's door, or somebody's puked up all over you, or you're having to go for washing powder or washing liquid, I think it was. I think that was quite an eye-opener.
Well, yeah, who knew? What I've got to do, I've got to take a child to a dental appointment tomorrow. I've got to get them out of school. And that's the bit I've never actually, in the past, it's always been like you ring up my primary school, but now it's high school and it's all,
Yeah.
I have to get a child out of school, break them out. I'm going to break my kid out of school. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
What else do I have to do? Oh, I had to do Mothering Sunday. I had to do that all on my own.
Oh, yeah.
So that was good.
But
I wish you kind of sort of
there, then.
Yeah, a very modern man. But we are into uncharted territory next week, where one of my children has a birthday, and I said to the good Mrs. Coates, I said, "Don't worry, I'll sort it out." Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Well, it hasn't happened yet.
A low five.
A low five, yeah.
For adulting. And being
well, yeah. I mean, I'm glad I remembered that, actually, because if I'd forgotten that, that would be perpetually known. Anyway, cool. We're just prattling on now. It's the end of the podcast.
Yeah. And Paula, if you've made it this far, hope you've enjoyed Australia. You look like you're having an amazing time. All that sunshine, the beaches. Oh, yeah.
No, Paula, everything's fine.
I'm going to message her. When is this out? Is this out on Saturday or next Saturday?
Saturday, yeah.
Saturday, I'm going to message her and say, make sure you listen on a smart speaker.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
No one's died, honestly.
No.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, on that note,
still time.
There is time, yeah. You've got another 10 days. You've got 10 days to go. Yeah. That's not funny. It's so not funny. I just don't stop. I just like I lay in bed in the morning and I lay in bed in the morning and I go, right, once I get up, that's it. I will not stop until 9 o'clock tonight. And so yeah, I'm just got to go and start a fire now. I've got to make tea. I've got to all that. It's all on. You don't care less, do you?
See, now, hopefully you'll have a bit of consideration, because when you say to me, can we do a podcast on this night? And I'm like, yeah, but I can't do it until this time because I've got this on, blah, blah, and then I have to do dinner. And then sometimes, not that I forget, but I get home late, still got to do everybody's dinner, blah, blah. So I say to you, I'm going to be a bit late. So now maybe you'll think.
No.
Just because you go to bed at 9 o'clock doesn't mean that everybody else does.
Fair enough. I've learned my lesson. Anyway,
Absolutely.
Good luck.
Yeah. Tatty bye.